Do UVB lights actually benefit crested geckos, or are they just one more unnecessary thing that people tell you to buy? Today I want to talk about the observable changes I personally noticed after adding UVB for my crested gecko Toro, and whether I think it was actually worth it. Hopefully this can help you guys decide whether getting UVB will be worth it for your own gecko or not. And by observable, I mean actual things as we, caretakers, can actually see with our own eyes, not what is happening within their body. Now, before we start, quick disclaimer. This is just my personal experience with my gecko, and your guys' results can be absolutely different. But I still wanted to make this video because when I was researching UVB for crested geckos, there really were not that many videos focused specifically on the actual noticeable changes, with some people even claiming that UVB makes no real difference for cresties, or that it's not necessary for them. And despite somewhat understanding why some people believe that UVB is not necessary for them, I will be not going too deep into that debate in this video, because I want to focus more on the actual observable changes. Because in my case, I noticed some significant changes, and that is why I wanted to talk about it. So first, very quickly, what even is UVB? I am not going to go super deep into the science here, because there are tons of other videos that explain this much more in detail and better than me. But simply, UVB helps reptiles to produce vitamin D naturally, which plays a significant role in calcium metabolism, and helps them prevent one of the most common issues that is known as metabolic bone disease. It can also add another part of a light spectrum that reptiles can perceive better than we can, which may change how they experience their environment. So to me personally, that alone already makes it worth taking it seriously. And if you are wondering what that means, it can basically translate into being able to see more colors for them and experience their surrounding in a more natural way. So with that out of the way, what actually changed for my gecko? The first thing I noticed was visibility and daytime activity. Before I added UVB, Toro mostly stayed hidden in the darker areas. He would usually sleep inside the cork tube, inside the snake plant, or towards the back of the terrarium. Basically, he was there, but I almost never saw him unless it was getting very dark, which was quite detrimental for me. Because one of the things I personally love to do is simply observe them, watching them move around, seeing their behavior, and just enjoying their presence. But since he would only come out when it got dark, I rarely got to see him. And shining light at night just to see him was something I was completely against. But after I added UVB, that changed a lot. He started to show up more often in the upper parts of the enclosure, and instead of always picking the hidden sleeping spot, he began resting directly under the light. Now I know that crested geckos are not baskers in the same way like the bearded dragon is. I'm not saying he suddenly turned into a desert lizard, but from what I personally observed, he absolutely started to choosing that area on purpose, and he became much more visible during the day. Here you guys can see him actually sitting directly under the UVB light, despite being actually a daytime. And for me, as someone who genuinely enjoys observing my gecko, that was a huge improvement. Also, there is something I will go into more detail about later, but I also believe that because he started to come out more often, he seemed to have gotten more used to being around me, as before he would immediately hide when he saw me near the enclosure, but now he doesn't even seem to really care. The second big thing I noticed was increased appetite. One of the biggest things I see often online is people saying their cresties do not eat much, or they refuse to eat bugs, and that was also true for Toro. At the beginning, my gecko could be pretty hesitant with food. Some day he seemed interested, the other day not so much, but bugs were definitely not an easy win. But after the UVB was added, his feeding response improved a lot. Now to be fair, I do not think UVB magically flipped a switch overnight in him, but his food response definitely became much stronger. He seemed more interested, more confident, and a lot, and I mean a lot more enthusiasm in there. Before, even though I tried all the same things, he would not accept it. He was actually quite terrified of the bug sometimes. Not to mention it would sometimes take like 20 minutes or over just to feed him a single cricket. And the same thing happened with his crested gecko diet. And honestly, that matters a lot to me, because feeding is one of the best and easiest ways to build a positive relationship with a reptile. Not to mention watching them hunt or go for their food is one of the most fascinating things, for me at least personally, to observe. The third and last thing I noticed was that he became easier to interact with and handle. If you own crested geckos, then you already know that they can be incredibly jumpy and feisty, especially when they're young. And because they can drop their tail when they get stressed, handling them can feel pretty intimidating. Before UVB, Toro would usually run as soon as I got close to the enclosure, so trying to get him out felt like a terrible idea waiting to happen. So for a while, I just accepted that handling was probably not going to happen anytime soon. Or honestly, maybe not at all. I at the beginning just thought that that was kind of his personality, meaning zero tolerance. But after I added UVB, he noticeably became calmer over time. And I do not want to exaggerate, but he actually calmed down significantly, almost like he became a completely different gecko. Now, he is not running over to hang out with me or anything dramatic like that, but he's much more tolerant with my presence and much easier to handle than he was before. Here, as you guys can see, he's very calm with me. He does not really react much, and even when I handle him, he just sits there or lets me hold him. Now again, I want to be careful here. I'm not saying UVB magically makes him tame. Personality matters a lot and every gecko is different. But my theory is that improved environment, the higher activity, the stronger food response, and all the other things UVB helped, all of that worked kind of together and affected his overall behavior. As these factors can make the gecko more comfortable, less stressed, and more likely to associate us with something more positive instead of something that's threatening or stressing them out. And him being less stressed and more comfortable definitely helped a lot. So, do I think that UVB is worth for crested gecko? For me, yes, definitely. I will be adding UVB to all of my geckos in the near future as soon as I can. Not just simply because that adding it is beneficial to them, but because also the changes were meaningful to me. He became much more visible, more active, more food motivated, and easier to interact with. And for me, as an owner who wants to observe and interact with my reptiles, those are really big improvements. That said, this does not mean every crested gecko will respond exactly the same way, but if you're on the fence wondering if you should get the UVB or not, and if you're willing to buy the correct UVB and set it up properly, I do think it's something worth seriously considering. The one I am using is the Arcadia Arboreal, the 8-watt version. I will put the full name in the description or in the pinned comment, along with a link if you guys would like to purchase one yourself. If you guys have questions or if you have noticed changes in your own crested gecko after adding UVB, please let me know in the comments. I would love to see what kind of changes you guys were able to observe. And obviously, if I missed anything or got anything wrong, feel free to correct me. I'm always happy to learn something new, and I cannot wait to see what you guys have to share. But that will be it for the video. See you guys next time. Peace!